Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, a very special live episode of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, July 23rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 39 days, the game against Michigan in 130 days, and 2024 Big Ten Media Days right about now. Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com joins me. We are live in Indianapolis for what is this year a 3-day Big Ten Media Days. And Tony, other than the fact that, people are probably going to be running up more of a tab on the company card at St. Elmo's or whatever this week. This is sort of welcome. This is the sort of unofficial welcome to the brave new world of Big Ten football.
Yeah, it is a brave new world with more teams, new teams, and right around the corner then is camp. So used to be we'd have like a week between, and it's like now camp starts next week. So we are right in the middle of it. We're right at the start of it. And yeah, it gets going and it just picks up speed and keeps going. And there's no slowing down until January something or other.
Could be January 20th. That's when the season officially ends for the last two teams. It will be potentially the longest season in Ohio State football history, or it's going to be the longest season in someone's football history this year with the expansion to the 12-team playoff. That is one of many, many, many new things this year. Sometimes you come to these events and it's like, what are we going to talk to, some of these guys about? Like, what you want to talk to the Ohio State guys about. You want to talk to the Michigan guys about, like, is there anything we want to ask? I don't know, the Northwestern players. And it's like, well, sure. There's a 12-team college football playoff. That may not apply to Northwestern, but there's 4 new teams in the Big Ten. That will apply to everyone. There is a new college football video game that will apply to everyone. There is a Ohio State Northwestern game at Wrigley Field that will apply to the Northwestern folks. I mean, there is just a ton of really interesting stuff to talk about this week, to the point that I almost don't even know where to start with this show. I mean, what are you most interested in learning, hearing about? Is there someone you're most interested in talking to this week?
I mean, aside from all of the Ohio State stuff that we'll get to, one of the questions that I do have for so many of the coaches is, now that there's an expanded playoff, how does this change your thinking, or how do you keep it from changing your thinking and your focus and your perspective? Because, you now have a better opportunity to make the playoffs, but how do you keep from looking that far ahead and losing yourself in the process? And all of these coaches are very process-oriented guys, but they're also goal-oriented people. So I'm going to assume most of them would say, like, we always had designs on the playoffs. So how many Big Ten teams have made the playoffs? 3, right? Just Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State?
Correct, yes.
So that's going to change this year.
Oregon has. Washington has. Yes, welcome to the new Big Ten. Exactly. One thing I'm super interested in talking to people about is, okay, you normally play, Ohio State, Michigan play, and that's it. Ohio State and Oregon play, and it's once a year. Ohio State and Michigan could play back-to-back weeks this year. Ohio State and Penn State could play twice or even 3 times this year. Ohio State and Oregon, there's a lot of people out there that think Ohio State and Oregon could play 3 times this year. I'm really interested in hearing people's thoughts on how does that change your approach to game 1? Are you intentionally holding more stuff back? I mean, Ohio State and Oregon play in October 6th. Or October 12th. Sorry, October 12th. Are you holding stuff back knowing, hey, you might see these guys again in Indianapolis in December, and then, hey, you might see them again in whatever, Arlington, Texas on January 9th or whatever it is?
I don't think you can hold anything back that early in the season because you need to win every game, or you need to keep winning games because you don't know what's going to happen after that. I think you could see maybe holding something back later in the season, but I don't see Ohio State or Michigan holding anything back against each other because it's against each other. So I don't know. I think it would take a special circumstance to where you've already got your playoff berth locked up. Like you're a 2-loss team and you're not going to play anybody else, and you're pretty good, or you're a 1-loss team or whatever, and you feel pretty secure. So maybe you take it a little bit easy, but I don't know how any of this would apply to Ohio State because it is going to be a very competitive Big Ten. So you can't hold something back against Oregon. I think of it as you've got to get to game 7. So you throw everything that you have in game 6 and you're just trying to get to game 7 however you can.
And, this is maybe one of these things where the coaching staffs are a little bigger this year. And you're going to have, I don't know if it's officially through, but it's as official as it needs to be to assume, sort of make assumptions on this. You are going to have bigger coaching staffs this year. Coaches can, basically everyone can coach on field and that kind of stuff. So that's going to open up more opportunity. This just feels like a year when you're going to need as many analysts and QC guys and everything else as you can, because that's sort of what a lot of those, the Nick Saban School for Wayward Boys back in the day, where he would get all these former head coaches, they would come in and they would just sit there and grind film. And it was just all these coaches just grinding film. This year, it feels like if you're going to be, you've got to scout these teams. You're going to have to scout so many more teams, because it's not, okay, here's the 4 or 5 other potential college football playoff teams. You could face any of a number of teams, and you got to be like fully prepped for biggest game of the year against every single one of them. That just feels like that's going to be, along with transfer portal, along with early signing day, man, that's going to be a busy December.
You also need to self-scout yourself, because you might be playing another team twice, and they're going to see all of those things. So you have to kind of prepare for that along the way as well. So it's going to be fascinating. All hands on deck. That includes players, coaches, staff, because this is, as I keep saying, it's going to be the most difficult national title ever. The most difficult national title run. The winner will have done more than any other team before it, because of the number of really, really good teams you're going to have to beat to get there.
Yeah, no question. So let's go through real quick just a rundown for this week, because as I said off the top of the show, this is a 3-day event this week. It has always been a 2-day event. They always put Ohio State and Michigan, 1 day apart, so you have to stay for both games or both days, because everyone knows those are kind of the 2 big brands. This year there's Tuesday and Thursday, so you got a whole day in the middle. Tomorrow, Tuesday, Ohio State really kind of carrying the weight for the most part. The teams at Big Ten Media Days on Tuesday: Illinois, Ruckers, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Purdue, and Ohio State. So those are your teams on Tuesday. Wednesday, you start welcoming in some of the new folks: UCLA, Iowa, Michigan State, USC, Nebraska, and Penn State. Boy, that is, you go through that list, and it's like, boy, that is 6 teams that I'm very interested in talking about for various different reasons. Thursday, finishing strong: Oregon, Minnesota, Maryland, Washington, Indiana, and Michigan. I was going through and starting to do prep for, all the different stuff we're going to be, all the different people we're going to be talking to, all the different storylines around all these teams. And it is a little overwhelming to, go from 14 to 18, but not only have you gone from 14 to 18, let's be honest, there are some teams that show up at this every year that the interest level is not that high. And if you miss this team or that team, it's probably fine. You're adding 4 big brands, 4 significant teams, and teams that there's huge interest in this year.
Yeah, and with specifically, I would say USC and Oregon, it feels like when we go to bowl games and we have those media days where you're just you get to talk to all of these different coaches from the other program, and it's very big, has a big feel. You're fascinated by it. You want to learn all about it. You're there for the entire hour or whatever, talking to these players and coaches. And now that's here. Yeah. And no disrespect to Indiana, Illinois, Northwestern, things like that. But it's very different. That's why the Big Ten has added them, because they are very different. That's why it's not Kansas State or Iowa State. Again, Tom, no offense. It's not the University of Toronto, if you will. So these are very big schools, very big programs. Dan Lanning, I have not ever talked with him, so I'm interested to see how that goes. See what I think of him, and because that's really what's most important, how I feel about somebody. I really like Matt Rule. That was my first time talking to him last year. He's just a regular dude, and I thought that was cool. Yeah, there are a few coaches I always look forward to talking to. Matt Rule, based on last year, it was just, it's like you could picture yourself sitting on a bar stool, shooting the breeze with him for an hour, and it's like, yeah, sure, that'd be probably fun. James Franklin, I know that James Franklin gets some mixed reviews. I always find James Franklin really forthright, really honest. I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure we'll talk to him a little bit about Ohio State visiting and not being the whiteout game yet again this year. And some of the questions for James Franklin, you have to how do you ask this nicely? Are you excited that you can make the playoffs now?
Yeah, well, and they have gotten close.
Right,
they got real close in 2016. And they have gotten close a few other times. This year, though, I think they're expected to be there.
Exactly. Well, that's a new kind of pressure.
Yeah, and that's a new kind of pressure. I'm interested in talking to him about Julian Fleming. I'm interested in talking to him about you've got your running backs back, you've got your quarterback back, you've got if the wide receiver core is there, they're a real interesting team.
Yeah. They'll always have defense.
Yeah. The defense, is going to be good. Yeah, what's the level of expectation there? And that's one of the questions I'm going to be talking to some other folks this week. What constitutes success for each of these teams this year? Because Ohio State, we have seen the natty or bust thing, and I think if Ohio State goes undefeated and beats Michigan and wins the Big Ten, and they get to the national championship game and they lose a close national championship game, I have a hard time calling that a bust. But I know there are people who think it is. But will
it sell T-shirts?
If there are teams that I think, what constitutes success for Michigan this year? First year, lost a bunch of players. What constitutes success for Penn State? Do they just have to make the college football playoff? Do they have to win a game? I mean, what does that look like?
Well, somebody on a Buckeye Huddle message board asked about Michigan. What constitutes a successful season? I said making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because that is now the expectation. They've done it 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. You don't do it, and you're your first year without Jim Harbaugh, and that's going to be noticeable. I think Penn State, do they need to do more than make the playoffs? I mean, because this just feels like, okay, you're going to make the playoffs. We've already written that part of the story. Now make it something more, because that's not enough. We've already put you in the playoffs, even though they haven't done it yet. And I do think there's a real pathway for them to go like 8-4 this season, which would be, I think, devastating to them.
Yeah. I think that's a real possibility. Yep. A couple super chats I want to get you real quick. Heaven R says, love the content. Enjoy the Indy trip. Go Bucks. Appreciate it. We are definitely going to enjoy the Indy trip. This is always a really busy week, and we're driving home like zombies because we've been running around all day, every day for 3 days. But man, there's just so much exciting stuff to talk about this year that I have been like counting the days to this for weeks.
And it'll be nice to not just talk about the same things over and over again. Like there's actually going to be stuff happening, even though not a lot happens during the summer, but we'll have new things to talk about, having talked to people about them. So and then of course, as I said, camp starts Thursday, next Thursday. So it's off and running. And
another super chat from good buddy, longtime friend of the program, Jordan Kapler, always one of my favorite commenters. Right? Yes, always. Any chance Buckeye Huddle can pay Denzel Burke to interview coaches and players? Denzel Burke, if you are new or have not heard us talk about this before, Denzel Burke is probably our favorite interview among the current players on the team, just because he is very, very honest about, for good or for ill. This is the time of year when everyone is going, everyone's going to be 3 games better than the projections, and everyone, this team is closer than any ever before, and
hardest off season ever.
You know what? It has never been. It's like watching the Red, White, and Boom fireworks, where every single year they wrap up, and it's it's the best year ever. It's like son of a gun, 53rd year in a row.
Wow, that's a record.
Quite a streak. This is happy chat time. This is spring training. Everyone's in the best shape of their lives. Everyone's in. Everyone's going to exceed the expectations. Denzel Burke will give it to you pretty straight. And the example that we have always used was talking to him at the Cotton Bowl last year at it was probably the pregame, interview, whatever, and asking him about Jeremiah Smith and, are you looking forward to going against Jeremiah Smith in practice? And he's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Like he hasn't done anything yet. Hasn't shown up. And then 3 or 4 practices into spring ball, we get a chance to talk to him again. He's like, oh no, that dude's legit. Yeah. Like it was when he says something, it really means something. So, they don't come to us for approval on who they bring to these things. But if they ask for input, we will happily tell them Denzel Burke. And I'm not going to lie. We were very happy to see his name on the list for this week.
And I was not the only person to suggest, hey, yes, why don't you send Denzel Burke? And as I'm putting together a list of questions that I want to ask the players, you can ask Jack Sawyer, like, hey, how's Kenyatta Jackson doing? And he's going to say he's doing great. He's doing great. Right. The only person you can ask of this and get an answer, a real answer that is truthful and not just player speak or coach speak, is Denzel Burke. Hey, how's Calvin Simpson-Hunt doing? Well, he's got to pick it up some. He's not quite doing this in the film room. Like, he will tell you things like that. And so I'm not going to spend the entire 30 minutes with Denzel Burke, but I think you might learn more from him over those 30 minutes than you would learn from Jack Sawyer and Emeka Egbuka. Though Emeka is also really good, and he's a pretty open guy too.
Yeah, and No one is meaning to suggest that things are not going great with Kenyatta Jackson,
No,
but it's just you can ask a question. There are a lot of times when people ask, well, why didn't you ask about this? And it's like, well, I can tell you what the answer would be, so I'm going to ask a question that I can't tell you in advance what the answer is going to be. So yeah, and Denzel Burke is going to be 45 minutes of not knowing what the answer is going to be, but I am really looking forward to it. Kevin Noon says, "Don't touch my stuff." Yes, Kevin, we were sharing a room with Kevin, but he is not here right now. Wingman Ted, did you find a wild Wi-Fi in the wild? Yeah, we are the first of all, +1 on the thumbnail there of a very, very hungover Rob Gronkowski with Jeff Swoboda on an Ohio State recruiting visit a while back. The Wi-Fi here is, I keep looking at the thing bouncing back and forth between 1 and 2 of the little dots in the circle. So we are at the mercy of the hotel Wi-Fi. So
and tomorrow we'll be at the mercy of the Lucas Oil Wi-Fi,
which is iffy, but. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Boy, we got a lot of really good questions here.
Write them down.
Yeah. Oh, well, don't worry, I'm starring them.
Okay.
We'll get through a bunch of these, but yeah, boy, there's some really good ones. All right, we're gonna skip right ahead to some of these listener questions. Christina says, "Welcome to Indy Fellows. Hope the traffic restrictions from this weekend's Eucharist conference are all lifted." Yes, that is all lifted. We just walked down and had dinner at a hotel that had a sign advertising that. But yes, that is, as far as we can tell, that is all done. No traffic restrictions. I did just get back from a weekend in Toronto, and I can assure you, no matter how bad the traffic in Indianapolis is, it will be nothing. It will not even hold a candle to.
Well, why would you say that? You don't need to try to jinx us on the way back, right? This is your own private pain. I don't need it.
Odysseus says, "I bet Tom was annoying Kevin and Tony with the triple option in the Navy in the video game." We did not. We thought about it and ended up deciding not to bring a video game system because we've got
work to do.
We've got work to do, and it's going to be. It will. That will. I recognize. I can find fault in myself that if that is here, I will be tempted to do it, and then I will not do the work that I'm here to do.
Plus, I don't need you guys breaking my controllers, which is probably a real danger.
Here's one. There's been several variations of this. Mello says, "Ask Coach Dave if he thinks Justin Fry's recruiting strategy is effective. Should he cast a wider net with offers?" This is one where there are certain ways you can ask recruiting questions that are a little bit. It's coaches and players are limited in what they can say about. They can't talk at all about specific players. So if you said, "Hey, how do you think you're doing with David Sanders?" Even if the answer was, yes, he is secretly committed, then they can't talk about him until the letter of intent is signed. We ran into this at early signing day last year where Edric Houston's letter of intent was not in. So we're having the Ryan Day press conference, and he keeps looking into the back of the room like, is it in yet? Can I talk about him? And the answer is no, no, no. And then it was yes. So, you can't ask specific questions. And this is you're in the middle of a recruiting cycle right now. So this is one where you can, the answer is going to be, well, you got to keep evaluating these things. Like I can kind of tell you what he's going to say about that. But, we have asked plenty of times. I asked him last year during one of the pre-bowl media things when he was talking about, evaluating coaching staff changes for the following year. I asked him, what kind of criteria you're using? And you can get kind of a straight answer on that.
Yeah. And it's not just Justin Fry. If Ryan Day wants to change something about his recruiting strategy, he has the power to be like, let's offer some more. So I don't think it's entirely on Fry, even though you do empower your coaches. But if you see a problem, go fix it. Go and help out. Get Chip Kelly in there. And Chip Kelly, from my understanding, has been doing quite a bit with the offensive line as well, as you would expect. But I think there's a ton of pressure on Justin Fry this year. This team, this recruiting class, next year's recruiting class with so many good Ohioans, and the way things are going right now, things could fall apart there. So if you can get David Sanders, then it almost you get some credit, and you can not worry as much about next year. But I still think you have to perform this year. David Sanders isn't going to solve all of your issues, even with a commitment and signing him. You still have to put the product on the field, and as I keep saying, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly will know whether or not Justin Fry is doing a good job this year, regardless of how they play, because they may be playing well in spite of him, or they may be playing poorly, but they love what he's doing. So it's more than just David Sanders and on-field results, like they're going to have a much better idea, obviously. But I think this is a very, very, very big year for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. And it's not like the offensive line class has nobody. They have a borderline 5-star tackle in the class already in Carter Lowe. So, I think there are a lot of eggs being put in the David Sanders basket, certainly by Ohio State fans and maybe by the Ohio State program itself. And, I think I think that has been a point of emphasis within the Ohio State program, I would say.
Yeah. And the number of offers, I mean, I know there's issues with maybe Tony Alford not offering enough people. Mm-hmm. And then once Carlos Loughlin comes in, like, it was like, why is he offering so many people? And it's like, well, he's just offering a normal amount of running backs. Yeah. And so I think a wider net is good when you're not catching with the smaller net. I mean, this is a fishing analogy, Tom.
Yes.
So you've got to
literally becoming a fisher of men.
There you go.
Perfect. I read that somewhere. Next up from Kyle Dubbs, has Braxton Miller's son Landon reclassified yet? What's the over-under on him getting 30 touchdowns? Now, he is, a 6th grader?
I think he's like 11 years old.
Yeah, something like that. Grader. So
I don't know what that year is. What is that?
That'd be 2031, I believe. Yes. So, that's, let's.
He got an offer from.
I saw he got an offer from, someone was it?
FAU.
FAU. Okay. Yeah. That's right. So, that's, is that a committable offer? I'm going to guess the answer is probably not. But, for a 2031, like, what does Tom Herman care? Tom Herman's either going to be fired or working at a bigger school by then.
But, hey, get in early. FAU may be in the SEC by then.
Crazier things have happened. You know what? We're going to just skip, since we're talking about schools from the South, let's skip right down to Addison Book, who says geographically wise but foolish not to consider Florida State in the Big Ten. I'm not sure I really buy that. I think that if Florida State was, the answer from the Big Ten or the leaks to Brett McMurphy last week were basically, well, we're not going to really be interested if the ACC is still an ongoing concern, which is, that's one way to frame the truth. If you were, that's also not something that is a binding statement. It was a leak anonymously to Brett McMurphy. I still think that there is a better than 50-50 chance that within 5 years, and this could very well be next year, if the ESPN opts out of the ACC's TV deal, which is a possibility
in February,
that opens up the floodgates for the whole ACC to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also opens up the possibility that the ACC stays together because of doing that, because you can change the deal and make it more lucrative for the schools who are trying to leave. But I did not understand the McMurphy thing, the leak there saying that Florida State and South Carolina bring nothing to the Big Ten. Florida State and Clemson, those markets, when they just went out west and got Seattle and Portland essentially at half price.
Yes.
But I think the Southeast is a much more lucrative market. So I didn't understand how it would not help them or bring. And it's a footprint. It's, it's the recruiting base. There's so many reasons to do that. And the main reason not to is the AAU stuff. When these are still college programs, but this is not collegial.
Correct. Well, this is much less about all the other stuff and much more about, in some ways, college football is becoming closer tied to college, where you may end up with an employer-employee relationship or something like that at some point. In other ways, a lot of the stuff that we talked about 5 years ago, in terms of conferences, in terms of AAU membership and all that kind of stuff, geographic fit, Piscataway, New Jersey, and Westwood, California are now in the same conference. I think geographic fit is no longer
footprint doesn't exist
unless they add Hawaii or Bayern Munich. I don't think the Big Ten is going to get much more far.
University of Toronto.
Let's a good transition here to our buddy Fort Wayne Buckeye super chat. Tom, you need to return that shirt as I don't see a Big Ten logo on it. If you know, interested to hear from Signetti this week.
Yeah, I like that dude. Well, he's got a ton of energy. I think one of my favorite quotes from a coach is when somebody asked him, he told somebody to Google me. Like, if you don't know who I am, Google me. And I think if people just start using that, provided there's something worth Googling, like if it's like a criminal record, like don't say Google me. Whatever you do, don't Google me. But I think that's a pretty good quote there.
You said that just enough time that your phone would like to know
what
it would
Tony
like to
Gerdeman.
help. Yes. Another super chat from Heaven Hour. Already planning my day around the release of the Connor Stalions documentary. Cannot wait. LOL.
Hold your horses.
So, see, because
I didn't even think about that. That's a good one.
I'm really not sure if you didn't think about that.
I did not.
I'm not sure which way is funnier. I think you not
right.
thinking about it is
funnier.
The
horse.
Oh, because it's yeah. So the Connor Stalions documentary that came out, that got leaked today or got reported today. Netflix releasing a documentary, I think on August 29th, I believe, right before the start of the season. Here's what I'm going to say. There have not been a lot of details reported, at least as far as I haven't looked in several hours, but the fact that it is being promoted with, and this is not an exact quote, but, Connor Stalions shares his side of the story of this. To me, feels like Connor Stalions probably had many choices of people, documentarians, to talk to about this story. This was the biggest story in college football last year. There's still going to be a tremendous amount of interest around it. At some point, the notice of allegations could come out, and there's going to be another wave of interest in this thing. So this is something that he probably had multiple offers. Nothing about Connor Stalions that we have seen or heard or read or anything else indicates he is interested in throwing Michigan under the bus in any way. So if this is Connor Stalions, I'm not saying that he's going to have editorial control of the documentary, but I think this is probably being pitched to him as, we want to tell your story. And that's the way they're marketing it, which makes me think that this is going to be not necessarily one that Ohio State fans are going to be laughing and pointing the whole time. Like, this is, you can tell his story in a way that Ohio State fans, there's lots of areas in life, Tony, where you're kind of getting the old Lionel Hutz. There's the truth and the truth, and you're gonna, you get someone's version of the truth, and I feel like this is going to be Connor Stalions' version of the truth. Which, how much does that bear a resemblance to what's in the notice of allegations from the NCAA when it comes out? Well, I don't know. We have to see both of them to find out.
A great American once said, "It's not a lie
if you believe it."
If you believe it. So I've mentioned this before. I've been watching a lot of old unsolved mysteries. I can say the old ones. They're all old. Rewatching the series.
Are arguably solved now or still unsolved?
Well, here's the thing. There are so many of these that I've seen now. These are from like 1992 to like 1998 or whatever, 89 to 96, whatever. But it'll be like a wife goes missing and they're interviewing the husband. And he's like, I just want her to come home. The police have interviewed me.
Since you're not talking about anyone specific, and I can't therefore libel anyone, let me just say he probably did it.
Well, and the thing is, all of these get updated.
Oh,
so you've got the husband saying, I just want her to come home. I don't, the last time I saw her, I made her dinner and I told her how much I loved her. And then that clip goes off, and then the update comes on, and it's like, he was tried in 2011, convicted of murdering his wife. They found her in the backyard, that sort of thing. This is not exactly like Connor Stalions in the Netflix thing, but there's going to be one version of the truth, and it's going to be Connor Stalions' version of the truth. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a real version that we're going to get.
No, I think that's probably, it will be interesting. Certainly, I think we will probably learn some things. I don't think that's going to be quite as, cast quite as much light on the story as you might expect, especially in the direction that Ohio State fans are looking.
It would certainly. I think it's going to leave everybody frustrated in terms of the Ohio State fans wanting more, as this whole thing is kind of done the entire process. That's a good question.
That is a good question from Christopher Sowers. Sankey will never let the Big Ten get a foothold in the SEC. Here's the thing. It has been pretty widely reported, and you never know. Mm-hmm. But you've already got South Carolina in South Carolina. You already have Florida in Florida. Do you need to add Florida State and Clemson and divide that pie another couple ways? I think that, there has been some reporting and some, rumor mongering that Clemson is really specifically focused on the Big Ten, which I get it. And I think that aligns with the fact that you're not, the SEC probably is not as interested. But beyond just, hey, this guy on Twitter says, there has been a lot of reporting that Clemson is looking at AAU membership, which is, has broadly, and I know I just said this, the conversation around this stuff has kind of changed.
Intent is important though.
But if it's like, well, we don't need you to be, whatever, to be a member of this club, but, if the club wants you to get to come in a jacket, and you're there at the store shopping for a jacket, like that tells me, like, yeah, you might have some thoughts about going to this club, because you don't need sleeves to be in the SEC academically. You can come in there in a tank top and that's fine. But in the Big Ten decision makers are the presidents. This is not done at the head coach voting or the athletic director voting. This is made at the university president level. So if Clemson and Florida State, and I think Florida State may have been sort of at least talking about AAU membership.
They've tried. UCF got it.
Yes, UCF got it instead of them. But they've been attempting to get that as well. So that's, I think all of that kind of points me to more likely to end up in the Big Ten than the SEC. It's, none of this is guaranteed. And you could tell me that 1 year from now, we're sitting here in Indianapolis and Florida State, news breaks that Florida State and Clemson, well, not that they're here, but news has broken that, and we're talking about the fact that they're joining. Or you can tell me it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I think any of those time frames, 12, 18 months from now, it's more likely that Florida State and Clemson are members of the Big Ten 18 months from now, at least, on the way to membership, than that they end up in the SEC. I think the SEC is probably looking at other places. I mean, and there was Addison, who has been talking about this a bunch, has a UNC logo for an avatar. And, I understand the Big Ten wants the Tar Heels in a jealous grab with the SEC. That's, I think UNC is a school that will probably have multiple suitors. Virginia is probably a school that will have multiple suitors. Georgia Tech, that's probably just if the Big Ten wants them, the Big Ten can have them. But, and then what's really interesting is a school like Duke, which is academically, sure, but, does not really fit with the land grant tradition of the Big Ten and is less of a football and more of a basketball program. But, if you don't get UNC, do you get Duke? Because Duke is not a great cultural fit in the SEC probably. So, and then does UNC and Duke want to stay together? And is that an option? I mean, there's so many different moving parts here. It's hard to really forecast, but, based on everything I've seen, everything I've heard, it just feels like Florida State and Clemson, if they go somewhere, it would be more likely to be the Big Ten than anywhere else.
I got two thoughts in terms of the footprint, or not needing the SEC, not needing the South Carolina market from Clemson because they already have it in Florida. Is there more value to keeping the Big Ten out than doubling up in a market? I think that's the point.
Yeah, well, I get it. Yeah,
you don't want to allow that in, and so we'll go ahead and make that sacrifice, and double up just to keep the Big Ten out. But they've not ever talked in that fashion. The SEC hasn't. And the other thought with the AAU thing, it's kind of like the Big Ten. Yeah, they'd love it. It's like a country club that they have black suit jackets in the closet that you can borrow. But Nebraska took one home. And they just keep wearing the same one when they come back because they were in the AAU, but they're no longer there. So it's like, it'd be great, but we've got jackets in the closet that you can use if you don't have your own. If you've got your own, we got you covered. Yeah.
Super chat from a long time, wonderful friend of the program, Omar Austin. Always great to see Omar in the chat, and of course at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Omar says, "Hello, gents. Will we get a food challenge out of any of you over the next few days?" We have not talked about that. That's we normally have a conversation about it. This is a week when we're generally going. This is one of the busiest weeks of the year for us, and we're not. We would probably, if we were going to do it, we would probably have done it tonight, because I know there's a lot of people out at dinner right now doing that. Like this is.
But Ohio State is tomorrow.
Ohio State is tomorrow. So, yeah, I mean, and
if we're going to do it, you would do it after Ohio State, because Michigan isn't until Thursday. But we've got so much stuff we're doing after Ohio State that we can't waste it eating pickles.
Well, and there's also a lot of interesting stuff coming up on Wednesday. I read through the list of all the different teams who are here and which day they're here. I mean, every day, Tuesday is kind of the day where it's like, there's Ohio State and a bunch of it's fine. Like, it's interesting to talk to Luke Fickell tomorrow, but there's a lot of teams that there's not going to be a ton of interest in. Ohio State is definitely going to carry the day interest wise. But yeah, to Wednesday, Thursday, there's so many interesting teams to talk to and interesting storylines.
And bowl coverage, there are days where all of the interviews are done by like 10:30. So you've got time after that to work, and then your day is free after that. So then you can plan your eating contests and your things like that, and you can walk to the store and go get 2 jars of pickles for somebody to eat.
All things that have actually happened. Yes. What a fascinating life we all lead. Odysseus says, Royal Rumble, which coach comes out on top? This is the easiest question.
Okay.
I have.
It's not Brett Bielema.
No.
Okay.
There is a coach
Luke Fickell
in the Big Ten who was I believe, 4-time state wrestling champion in the state of Ohio. Right.
But the thing is, Tom, that you're not thinking about with Royal Rumble stuff. People team up to get the best guys out.
Mm-hmm.
They try.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, Brett Bielema may be the biggest guy. He's not going to – I think the sleeper, for one, PJ Fleck. He's going to be flying around.
Yeah.
He's also you're not worried about him. You're not focused on him. He's going to be like one of the last 3 or 4 guys remaining just because you see through him. Mm-hmm. Also, sometimes guys will like fall out of the ring but not go over the top, and then they'll just stay out of the ring. Mm-hmm. I could see him doing that. Mm-hmm. And then like there's two guys left, and he comes back in and tries to throw them both over. So I'm not saying he's shady. I'm just saying I could see him doing that. He's a scrapper. He's going to do what it takes. Greg Schiano, also watch out. He's from New Jersey, so he's dirty.
He is from New Jersey, rather famously, yes. Wingman Ted said, I'd love for someone to ask coaches if they think that with Oregon entering the Big Ten, if schools in the Big Ten will move towards contracts with Adidas or Under Armour to slightly reduce Oregon's NIL funds. I don't think – when you look at the scope of Nike's brand and Nike's portfolio, the college contracts are a relatively small percentage of that. And you also have to remember Ohio State, Michigan, whoever – has an existing contract right now, and their contract with them runs for some number of additional years. And so by the time you got rid of, we got rid of that contract, for even that small amount of bottom line difference to kick in, that's, you're multiple years down the line. And, the whole point of the Phil Knight NIL reporting is, hey, he's 80 whatever years old, and he wants to see a title before, while he's still around to see it. So, making a change that might impact you 5-8 years down the line in some small way, it may kind of, be besides the point.
And I'm not sure where I said it on this show or one of our others. We'll be talking to somebody, or we could talk to somebody on Wednesday who has dealt with this firsthand. That's Rick Neuheisel. And we're talking with, we'll have an opportunity to talk with the CBS guys on Wednesday. Yeah. But I heard him telling the story. It was when he was maybe with UCLA or Colorado. I think it was UCLA, but recruiting against Oregon at the time. And he's very good friends with
Chip Kelly, Mike Bellotti?
No, the Nike guy.
Phil Knight.
Phil Knight, sorry. Very good friends with Phil Knight, has been forever, was friends with him when he was the UCLA head coach. And so he was recruiting against Oregon for somebody, but like Oregon won out because of Phil Knight. And he's like, Phil, I don't feel great about wearing your logo on our jerseys and advertising for you while you're going and working for Oregon. And Phil Knight was basically like, yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Like basically sucks to be you is basically the answer.
And I think it's easy for, 45-year-olds to roll their eyes at the kids today who care about whether it's the Nike swoosh or the Jumpman logo or whatever on their stuff. But there are people for whom that does move the needle. And so, and frankly, from an Ohio State perspective, it's either that's going to move the needle or it's which makes more money. And that's just, there's a lot of factors that are going to, come into play before you get down to, well, this might slightly decrease Phil Knight's net worth, which you're not going to decrease it by enough that's probably worth the trade-off there. Here's one from Christopher Sowers. Everybody is sleeping on Ruckers. They have an easy schedule, and if Michigan or Penn State lose 4 games, they could sneak into the playoffs. You had me right until they can sneak into the playoffs. Their schedule is very easy. They are going to be really good. Their defense is going to be legit this year. potentially their defense has kind of gone from pretty okay to better to like this year could be like legit good. And you just got Ethan Kaliakmanis, who's the former Minnesota quarterback, who's fine, better than Gavin Wimsatt. I mean, Gavin Wimsatt was bad last year. I will just read through the Ruckers schedule. Howard, that's a win. Akron, that's a win. Off week at Virginia Tech. I mean, that's winnable. Washington at home, at Nebraska, home for Wisconsin, home for UCLA, at USC, home for Minnesota, at Maryland, home for Illinois, at Michigan State. I mean, you have – I'm just pulling
What's
this
a
up.
game that they can't win on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's a game that's an automatic loss on there. They missed the top 5 teams in the Big Ten. They missed Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, and Iowa. That's pretty good. And you've got, Washington at home. You got Wisconsin at home. There are no games on there that I say 0% chance. You know, there might not be a bigger beneficiary this year of getting out of the Big Ten East than Rutgers, because you got Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State off your schedule, and you got a bunch of, there are games they're going to lose. They're not going 10-2. Yeah. But they could go 8-4.
Their toughest game, and I have them going 6-6. And this is when I did this like 2 months ago, just randomly first read. Like their toughest game possibly is at USC. Like that's the one you look at. Is that the Pick Six previews right
there? That is Pick Six previews. What does
yes. Brett Cianci?
Brett has them number 10 in the Big Ten, number 39 overall in the Power 5. So
does he have a record?
I don't think he has a record, but I mean he I will read you his outlook, and this is the Pick Six previews.
Bylaws.
Yes. Yes. Well, I can read it with all the intonation of the Big Ten bylaws if you'd like. I'm going to try and have Brett on the show. I've been emailing back and forth with him a little bit. He'll probably be on the show in the coming weeks. But what he says for outlook is Schiano did it again for the second time. He inherited a broken program and built them into winners. The 2024 squad features a veteran defense that could push into the top 25, a tough offensive line, and a workhorse running back. That would be Kyle Monangai. The pass game needs work, but otherwise they have the Big Ten formula. Rutgers won the Big Ten schedule lottery this year as the only team in the league to avoid all top 5 teams. This is their best shot to get a program best 4 Big Ten conference wins. Now, 4 Big Ten conference wins would get you 4 plus Howard plus Akron, and then Virginia Tech. You want to tell me Virginia Tech's not beatable on the road?
I've got them winning 4 in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
and that's Wisconsin, UCLA, Minnesota, and Illinois. All of those are at home.
Yeah.
If you tell me they beat Washington at home, that's not going to shock me.
Right. You can get to 6-6 without winning on the road.
Yeah.
And all the home games are winnable. So I think Rutgers is someone asked on our board at BuckeyeHuddle.com, the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse earlier today, Big Ten risers, like which teams do you see as potentially like improved and better records this year? Rutgers is right at the top of the list for me because it just feels like this is going to be, Greg Schiano has gotten them from, the surface of the moon, which is where they were in 2019. That was the 2019 Rutgers team is probably the worst Big Ten team I have seen in person. Probably. I mean, that was so bad. That was the year that I picked Ohio State to beat them 222-0 because it was like, there's no point to like, this is going to be Georgia Tech Cumberland. 2020, Schiano came back. They had that game where they were just kind of a pain in the butt, and they just had some trick plays in the second half and just kind of hung around Ohio State just long enough that it was like, all right, yeah, okay, they're okay. They made a bowl game. They didn't just make a bowl game. They won a bowl game last year. They beat Miami in the Pinstripe Bowl last year. That's a program that is trending in the right direction. I am fascinated to talk to as many people around Rutgers as I can. What does this guy know that no one else on earth knows? Because no one else has ever been able to do this, and he just this is now twice. He has just worked the same magic and just brought them back from the dead.
And when you do talk to them, make sure you talk with your hands.
Hey, forget about it.
They understand it. But in terms of up and coming, or like, you see that when I did this 2 months ago, like, is that Nebraska 10-2, 7-2 in the Big Ten? Like,
we can play the Nebraska schedule game at some point.
I did have them beating Iowa at the end of the season in Iowa, which I think is that's
ambitious,
right? But the rest of that schedule, it's not outrageous. Right. It's not you would rather have Ohio State on the road because you're not likely to beat them at home anyway.
Correct. Yeah,
so
don't waste a home
right,
game.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Stephen Cherry wants to know, did we bring Noon with us?
Yes. Kevin!
Oh. Yes, we did. We did. See, well done. See, because his name is Kevin too, and there was a movie anyway. Yes, we did bring Kevin. Kevin is we do not need to run the 3-man weave tonight.
Right,
We will probably have Kevin on a live show. But yes, we will have him with us a little later on in the week. But yes, he is in Indianapolis. We are looking forward to spending the week with him. This is we talk a lot.
Sure do.
But we talk a lot on these shows. I mean off the air, we talk a lot, but this is such a weird job where we see each other nonstop during the season, and then we'll go like a month and a half without seeing each other. It was like
It's great.
We just we just went out and had dinner like a month ago. It's just yeah. So yeah, it is nice to get back into football season for any number of reasons, most especially the football. Super chat from Omar Austin. How about you just put X-Lax in a Hershey wrapper and give it to Kevin?
Because we're all in the same room.
That's
why we
the only reason. The only reason.
Yes, that is
just to be clear.
Right.
And another super chat. Omar wants to know when Tony is going to stop ducking him on NCAA 25. Don't be scared.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even know how to play online. Is that on the internet now? Is this me being super old? I would play anybody online. The thing is, we've got a thread on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse about all of these different. We've got it about the video game, and there are people talking about how I've only been practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the game's been out for like a week now. All you do is practice. Like I've got no shot. Like talking about how you just got to flick this and you drop down you change your linebacker to your corner when you see the receiver going in the slots. Like I'm just trying to throw the ball and tackle the ball. I'm not built for this. So as long as Omar, as long as you are not built for this, we'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 28-0 and the first quarter and I have not yet been able to throw a pass, let alone complete a pass, because that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
You drop back and you think you've got time and don't even bring the play action. You got no chance. So just don't be a bully.
We had a rule back in my college days where 21-0 was known as a stanky booty, and the game was automatically that was over. We're moving on with life. There is no point here. Let's see. We got to go through. Jordan Kapler has one. Do you have a sports moment that you like rewatching? For example, there's a shot of the Auburn band during the kick six, and I like focusing on a different person each time to see the reaction. The kick six is a really good one. I don't remember what it was. It showed up just on Twitter, and it was, one of these cuts where it's like, here's the CBS announcers, here's the Auburn announcers, here's the Alabama announcers. It's like, son of a gun, I watched it all the way through 3 times. How about that? Like, and if that shows up tomorrow, I will sit there and I will watch
It's insane.
Yeah,
that happened. What I do like to do, and I don't really have a great answer on that one. I'm sure there are some, but some of the photos that you've taken, the background stuff.
Oh yeah,
the reactions in the background, or Jim Davidson, the late great Jim Davidson, like the Ted Ginn punt return in 2004, when you've just got the Michigan quarterbacks on the sideline behind him, just super upset, but trying not to be angry about it, like just trying, no sell it. The background behind the Greg Oden attempted dunk against Georgetown, where everybody's like freaking out. I always think those are interesting things. Just the background, you see the reactions, and they're just frozen in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Just thinking through other sports moments. I mean, just the real bolt of lightning out of nowhere kind of moments. I'm sure 15 years ago, if Twitter had been a bigger thing in 2007, the end of the Ohio or Michigan Appalachian State game would have been like that for a lot of people. That was a real bolt of lightning.
Yeah, but also all of the concourses at Penn State and Ohio State watching that game, the reactions, that was it may have been the biggest thing on YouTube at that time back then. I do have one that I look for quite a bit. Not quite a bit. I look for it on Twitter and I can't find it. And it's my own video of the drunk lady falling out of the stands.
Yes.
On JT Barrett's last game, 2017 senior day.
Yes. Against Illinois in an absolute monsoon. Oh, I laugh at that every time. I know it's coming. And then I'm watching.
She's totally fine. She was drunk. It's fine.
Yeah. It's just JT Barrett he was they've got the Illabuk. I don't remember if he's carrying the Illabuk or not, but
No,
he's,
he's running off.
He's
at
just
that
running
point,
off and like high fiving the fans, and you're just watching JT Barrett, and then in the background this lady just right out of the stands, and the stands are whatever 6 feet taller there, so you're not
flat on her back.
Yes,
but she was the water broke her fall.
Yeah, did not break anything. Probably felt it the next morning.
But, I walked her up the ramp and she was totally fine. All
right, so a couple more I want to get to. Derek wants to know if the Big Ten adds 2 more schools, does that increase Oregon and Washington's payout? They got reduced pay because the Big Ten's adding 2 more schools would lower the payouts for the other 16 schools. That's probably an it depends.
Well, yeah,
is that in the contracts with Oregon or Washington? We don't know.
Yeah.
One thing we have found recently is that, boy, howdy, is it hard to get specific details on conference contracts with schools and TV network providers and all that kind of stuff.
And Tony Petitti, Big Ten commish, starts things off tomorrow at 11. Mm-hmm. We could ask him this question. There'd be no answer.
No, there would be absolutely. Listen, we're not actively looking at anyone. We're very happy with where we are.
Yeah, there's no way no way to know that without looking at the contract. But I think it is an interesting question. It's like, you're going to bring in somebody new and give them a full share. Like,
no, nobody said they're giving them a full share. What? Florida State wants out of the ACC so badly, and Clemson. Clemson's not exactly disguising their intent either. And you're talking about going from, I don't remember the exact numbers, but the ACC TV deal right now is 30-something million, low 30 million. Big Ten TV deal is 75 or something like that. You could, what? Guess who's taking $45 million with an enormous smile on their face?
Because it's going to be more eventually. Like SMU taking nothing. TV money for 7 years or whatever.
Literally nothing from the ACC. Yeah, and boy, that might not work out great for them. now as the world has changed a little bit,
I think they're going to be top 4 in the ACC this year.
They very well could. Next up from Christopher Sowers, the 4 Big Ten teams are really wanting. The 4 Big Ten teams are really wanting Notre Dame and Texas A&M to join. Notre Dame, Notre Dame has been at the top of the Big Ten's list for as long as the Big Ten has had a list. I think the last person from the Big Ten that said no to Notre Dame was Fielding Yost. So it has been a hot minute. But Texas A&M, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if they're an AAU school, and they could go. I mean, I'm sure the theory there is they left the Big 12 to go to the SEC to get away from Texas, and then Texas, then their ex-wife moved in next door. Yeah. And so, are you leaving again? Maybe. I don't know what the TV contract is there or whatever, or the exit fees or.
I think going into Texas is a good idea. I thought there wasn't that long ago that Texas was headed for the Big Ten. That was the way it was going to happen. Like the Pac-12 botched it or something, and then the Big Ten was right there. It looked like that was going to happen. What if Texas had gone to the Pac-12 like was originally going to happen?
Then Brett Yormark doesn't have a job right now, and there's everyone's proclaiming Larry Scott the biggest genius of all time. So. Wingman Ted wants to know where we can find the video of the lady falling out of the stands. Didn't you just have a link on our board? Didn't you put that video up there somewhere?
I did. I must have found it. I think I was a link to my Google video.
Okay, yeah.
It's because I've searched on Twitter. I searched my handle and all of the various JT Barrett lady falling, like all of these different things. And
we're gonna do a date search on this. On Twitter when we're done here.
Oh yeah, it would have been. Well, see, I don't know how quickly I tweeted it out.
I can do a date range search. I'm sure we can make this happen. Lisa says the next few days we're going to find out a lot about our conference as a whole. Last week was SAC time. This week it's ours. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm really looking forward. There's, as I said off the top of the show, there's so many different things that I'm so interested to talk to people about this week.
Yeah, and will there be something new coming out, or remember. 2021 when Jim Harbaugh said that Michigan was going to beat Ohio State or die trying. Well, something like that. A couple of years ago when Scott Frost said we're not into sloganeering, kind of as a shot at PJ Fleck. Like their little rivalry that was going on.
And one of them is still here this week. The other is not into sloganeering.
So.
Mozart's Ghost says it's approaching the dog days of summer, but it's great to see you both. Yeah, great. It is great to be seen.
It's
great to be here. It is man, I feel like I keep saying this, but I cannot think of a football season I've been anticipating more than this one. Like I'm always this time of year, it's always like I can't wait for football season. This year, though, with all, I mean, sure, there's the expectations around the Ohio State team, but there's also just sport wide. My goodness, how many different like everything is new and exciting this year.
You know, it's exciting when this is the worst non-conference schedule at Ohio State in a long, long time, and that's not really like it doesn't diminish things necessarily. Like it's a bad non-conference schedule, but it'll be made up for down the road. Like if Notre Dame was the season opener this year, whatever, or game 2 or whatever, like in South Bend, like it was last year, that was an awesome place. I recommend anybody go catch a game there if you can.
Here's a good one from Wake. Oh, sorry.
No.
We'll get there in a minute. I got to look that up in a minute. But Isaac McIntyre says, in honor of Tom, the first thing I did. He says I didn't, but I'm sure.
In honor of Tom,
I did.
Yes, it would be.
I'm sure he means the first thing I did in college football 25 was put up a 220. Yeah, you're all excited for the season. You realize it means bold prediction shows are coming back. Be careful what you wish for. Oh, there you go. And also returned by the punt and kickoff for touchdown in honor of Tony. This is Stephen Cherry says, I feel like Oregon is getting too much preseason love. I mean, you're going to find out pretty quick if they're getting a proper amount of preseason love or not. It is. I think they're going to be, I think they're going to be not just a college football playoff team, but still playing on New Year's Day and probably maybe even a week after that kind of college football playoff team. I think they're legit.
Are they the second most talented team in the Big Ten? Considerably.
I don't think you need to put a question mark. I mean, I who else would you have? I don't
know. I'm wondering where is USC in this? Are they 3rd, 4th, 5th with Michigan, Penn State?
I am selling USC stock. If there is an option, I'm going to ask Lincoln Riley: is there an option to short you in some way? Because it feels like you've reached the point of the roller coaster where it has stopped clicking, and now you're looking over the front of the car, and it's like this might go poorly.
Caleb Williams is not coming through that door.
Caleb Williams is not walking through that door. Yeah, Caleb Williams did a lot, and yes, the defense should be improved.
Can't be worse.
But that feels like that might be a rough transition year for USC. And then, now you've got all of these Big Ten schools that have recruiting ties out. It's not going to make it harder for Ohio State to recruit in California.
USC opens with LSU in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Then it's Utah State.
Win.
Then they're off, and then they're at Michigan.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not real high on Michigan, but coming east, you're probably losing that. Then you get Wisconsin at home. Give them a win. At Minnesota, sure, win. Penn State at home, you're probably losing. At Maryland, who knows what the weather is.
Yeah.
Home for Ruckers. I mean, you could lose that game. At Washington, you could lose that game. Home for Nebraska, you could lose that game.
They're going to find out a lot about the physicality. And I'm just looking at just from Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Rutgers. And I don't even know if I need to put Wisconsin in there because I don't know if Luke Fickell's program is there now. But
that's not yet.
Rutgers and Michigan against USC is just going to be ugly.
Well, you've seen USC
really physical.
You've seen USC play Utah in the past, and it generally kind of goes one way.
Yeah.
And at Michigan is going to go probably that way. Wisconsin is not. This is not a Barry Alvarez. Wisconsin
even Minnesota is very physical.
Yeah. Then Penn State is probably going to try and beat your face in. At Minnesota is going to be. It's early enough in the year that it's probably not a weather game, but Minnesota is going to try and beat your face in. Minnesota has a real good running back. I am excited to talk about him this week as well. So Jordan says, since Kevin isn't here to defend himself, should we put in a vote for me to switch my hatred of Tom to Kevin for old time's sake? I feel like I have to abstain here.
Well, then so it's my decision.
Well, I think it's your decision, and maybe we'll throw it open to the viewers as well.
I think the viewers should abstain as well, and just leave this up to me.
I assume Kevin's not watching anymore because he only commented the one time. So
just like Kevin, just punch the clock and then go take a nap. No.
It sounds like you've already switched your hatred to Kevin.
The heart wants what the heart wants. I can't tell anybody else to do what I'm not willing to do myself.
Sage Ohio says Oregon thinks they'll come in and own the Big Ten. Ask Penn State, how did that go?
Well, Penn State won it the first year.
They They won it the second year.
Second year.
But, they've – I don't think Oregon's going to come in and own the Big Ten. Ohio State still plays in the Big Ten. And you're going to have Michigan and Penn State and Washington and, yes, USC as well, who are going to have their strong seasons. And we'll see what Nebraska turns into. I don't think Oregon's going to come in and own the Big Ten. Like this is the time in the cycle where every school's fan base is going, we are going to own these suckers. And, Missouri came in. Yeah, Texas A&M came in and won the SEC West, I think, at least once. And, Missouri came in and won the SEC East a couple times. And, those two teams are kind of both, trending in the right direction.
You might be able
now.
to do it at the right time or at that time, but you've got to sustain it. And do you think – I know you love the aggressive style of coaching. Dan Lanning's mistakes last year against Washington, do you think he learned – does that change him, or does it just mean like, those things happen, I'm not changing anything I do, despite the fact that it may have cost them a national championship?
Yeah, and that's something I'd be really interested in talking to him about. Your fourth down decision-making process. Yeah. That's something I've talked to Ryan Day about in the past. That's one of my little personal hobby horses. Just what's your process? Like, you're going to have times when, as a fan sitting at home, you're going, why aren't you going for it? And there's probably some data out there that they've done studies on the wind at the stadium, or, hey, you don't know this, but the 3-tech is a little banged up. So we think we can kind of push him back and get the yard up, in the middle, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that goes into those decisions. I'm fascinated by that whole process. I think that's really interesting. Frankly, I'm interested in talking to some of these younger coaches who I bet Ryan Day played college football, 2000. I bet Dan Lanning played college football 2008 or whatever. You hear about coaches kind of learning from, aggressiveness and going for a fourth down and 2-point conversions from growing up playing Madden or growing up playing EA Sports. Like that's kind of an interesting topic as well. And
that's a question that I have listed as what I want to ask about, but I don't know if it's silly or if it's very real. Like, did you grow up playing video games? Mm-hmm. How has that informed you on how you think you should be able to, how aggressive you think you should be able to be? How realistic is that? Mm-hmm. Because this is a new generation of coaches. You can't ask Kirk Ferentz about it. You couldn't ask Joe Paterno about it. You can ask these guys about it. Couldn't ask Jim Harbaugh about it. Not Brett Bielema, but like Ryan Day, maybe Lincoln Riley, like
Ryan
Walters for sure. Like that is a thing that everybody has done. Has it done anything for you in the way you think as a coach, or is this just a ridiculous notion?
Yeah. Jordan Kapler says Purdue has entered the chat, and let me just I feel like I just need to say this as often as I can. October 18th, Oregon at Purdue, a Friday night, the week after, 6 days after what could be the biggest regular season game in Oregon program history, win or loss. You got to get on a plane and you got to go to Ross-Ade Stadium on a Friday night. Tony, what could possibly go wrong?
I'm going to assume it's going to be raining, and it'll be maybe 57 degrees or something. It'll be temperature fine. I mean, it's nothing that Oregon wouldn't be used to playing in, frankly. But and also the Friday night Pac-12 games is times where it's like, how did you lose that game?
Oh yeah,
it was a Friday night. What did you want from us?
That's a Friday night USC going up to the Palouse or to Corvallis, like that.
But I've got Purdue going 2-10.
Yeah,
and they've got it's not an easy schedule.
No, it is not an easy schedule. Wingman Ted, I'm going to guess the answer is no. Sorry, the chat keeps jumping because you guys keep putting in great questions. Wingman Ted says, I don't have NCAA 25 yet. Does it have a player with the Blocko jersey? If so, who is it? I'm guessing the answer is no.
The answer is no.
Yeah, the answer. And with the game being able to be updated, they will probably have one with the Blocko jersey as soon as that changes. But right now, it does not. Super chat from Drew Calabro. The YouTube account posted over an hour of video of OSU wide receivers and quarterbacks practicing. Interesting to watch and get dynamics of the quarterback battle. So I have not seen that. Sage Ohio with the prediction, Purdue by 10 punts. That's it could be. I mean, I'm not expecting Oregon to lose. I'm expecting Oregon to have a terrible time and to learn what the rest of the Big Ten already knows about games at West Lafayette.
Yeah, just be ready. Like Purdue, Ross 8 is just like an entire orange barrel in itself. It just ruins everything.
Yep. Super chat from Stephen Cherry says Ohio State versus Oregon, a night game. The question is, we don't know yet. I can show my math on this, or you can just take my word for it. We know that there was a trade between the networks, that one network traded another network a week, essentially traded down in the draft. So my assumption is, based on where this is and how I think these games are going to fall, I think Fox traded probably the second or third week of the draft for a couple picks later. I think they traded it to NBC, not CBS. None of this is official. This is all kind of reading the tea leaves and
process of elimination.
Yeah, process of elimination and that kind of stuff. And I think the reason is that Fox is not going to do a primetime game, and the Oregon-Ohio State game is the biggest game. So you're not going to be able to do that's not going to be big noon because that's a 9 a.m. local kickoff on the West Coast. So I think what would make a lot of sense to me would be Fox traded that to NBC. NBC traded a couple picks later, and then Fox is going to have their choice of the Penn State game being a noon or a 3:30 kick, Ohio State, Penn State, or they could take the Michigan-Oregon game that week, which is at Michigan, so that they could also have the Big Ten, have that be a big noon kickoff. This is all, you don't care about any of this. This is all the, like, how I'm going to show my work. Like, I always hated when your math teacher asked you to show your work, and it's like, well, I got the right answer.
Yeah.
Like, the right answer is, I'm pretty sure that the Ohio State-Oregon game is going to be primetime. The Ohio State-Penn State game is, by virtue of the fact that we know it's not the whiteout game.
Right.
That tells me Penn State knows that the sun is going to be shining at the beginning of that game. So I'm pretty sure that's how it's all going to line up. None of this has been announced, but I think that's how it's going to shake out.
I also think it's interesting. So far, no CBS games, which is a 3:30, have been out west. So
okay.
So I'm wondering, and that's something we can ask them tomorrow or Wednesday, is that even a consideration? Do you even want a noon, noon
and
Pacific?
This is the week when we get to talk to, like, this is the week where we do all Tony and I every year this year the Big Ten has absolutely hosed us, and Bill Carollo, the Big Ten's director of officiating, is going at the same time as Ohio State's players, which is super annoying because that is always the 45 most interesting minutes of my week out in Indianapolis, which sounds so boring and it's so compelling. You learn so much. We sat down with one of the CBS executives last year. I think it was CBS executive, right?
It was,
at lunch, and just like sat there and just talked to him, and he kept looking at us like, why are you guys asking me about this incredible minutia? And a bunch of the stuff he wouldn't answer or couldn't answer. But we're trying to narrow down, like, selection process and all kind of stuff. We're having these conversations, and it's like, why would anyone possibly care about it? And he all but asked us, why could you possibly care about this? And the answer is because we'll get asked what time's the Oregon game. And we're like, well, we can kind of do the math here. I don't need a calculator for this. I can do this sort of off of it.
And there's only like 6 of us that care about it, but
right, yeah. And when I have Matt Sars on the morning show, it's like, this is one of my people. I love this. This is great because he's the one who will tell you that, hey, it's, you got to remember the Pittsburgh Pirates have a day game that day, so therefore the Pitt yada yada game is at night. Havenar says, feel like when we handle business against Michigan, Ryan Day is going to have a Lou Holtz type post game. Also, I'm going to the game this year. Can't wait.
Get there early, stay late.
Yes, that is going to be, we did a biggest games in the Big Ten, and Ohio State, Oregon could legitimately, if Georgia loses early, be a 1-2 game. Biggest game, probably regular season game in Oregon program history. Probably not in Ohio State regular season history, but I don't know that that's the biggest games in Ohio State's schedule because, man, if Ohio State, I know Ohio State could theoretically win the national championship and still lose to Michigan. There are going to be so many people who are not happy about life if that happens. That is such an incredible game. And, boy, the storylines around that game and what that's, all the storylines around that, and could they be playing the next week? Maybe. I mean, that's going to be so fascinating. So, yes, if you can get to that game, strongly recommend you should go to that game.
I finished my 50 for 50 series today, and the thing to look forward to this last time was as soon as the Indiana game is over.
Yeah. Oh,
because
yeah.
that is the start of Michigan week. Indiana is the 11th game of the year. As soon as that game is over, Indiana goes away. All of the questions, all the focus is on Michigan. And I don't know what kind of reaction Ryan Day will have. We've talked about this before when I asked him in 2019 after beating Michigan, is it more relief or is it more joy? And he said at the time it's more relief.
Yeah.
I think this next, although last year would have been joy because it had been 3 years.
Yeah.
This year, I think it's going to be go back to relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the joy. But
yeah,
you have to win it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you wonder, the third base sniping. I mean, Sharon Moore inherited the defending national championship program, so you could see that going the other
Ryan
way.
Day inherited a team that lost at Purdue.
That is true.
No offense.
Markedex says, defend your answer, and Tom comes out guns blazing. Listen, we can show our work. Generally, listen, I have read plenty of Big Ten bylaws on this show over the years. We will always show our work if you ask us to, but generally the answer is it will be better for everyone if you just trust us. We generally have reasons for what we say on here, but that's definitely something we will go into detail if you ask. Markedex says OSU versus Oregon can happen 3 times this season. The chalk is at least a rematch.
We've already put the over under at 1.5. We've both taken the over, I believe.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I just think get ready to. The first game is only going to be when they play on October 12th. Go ahead and just call it the first game.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, why didn't they call this World War I at the time? It's like, well, they didn't know. I feel like Ohio State versus Oregon won. We could just call it that, and I feel like you're probably going to get proven correct over with time. Wingman Ted says Iowa could become a top tier program if they learn about the forward pass. What they achieve on defense is pretty special at Big Ten. Yeah, I mean Norm Parker is good at what he does. Brian Ferentz, less so. But they have a new offensive coordinator, new day. I'm interested. That's another team I'm super interested to talk about. Like what is the mood around there? That was such an overwhelming story last year. That swallowed up their whole season. Now you got a new thing. How different is it really going to look?
Well, Tim Lester, the former Western Michigan quarterback, who is now the offensive coordinator, I liked him back in the day because he was on my fantasy team a couple of times. So, but any kind of offense would be a significant upgrade. But if you have a good offense, like this is a 10-win team, and that's a playoff team. I just think how much has been wasted over these last few years. And the thing is, you're not national title contenders per se, but they've been close to making the playoffs. 2015, they were a win away in the Big Ten championship game. Like they've been close, and they've actively tried not to get there. With the offense, and now you maybe fix that, but I still don't know how fixed it is because you still need the players as well. Like defensively, they've got the system, they've got players, they've got time to develop. Offensively, I don't know how far along in that development they are. You've got, Cade McNamara at quarterback is what he is. I mean, he's led a team to the playoffs. So
he has,
but can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
Is there enough talent around him?
Yeah.
I think there's a bunch of questions about Iowa, but special teams and defense are going to keep them in games that the offense, if they just wouldn't lose them. Like how many games did the offense lose for them last year and over the last few years? Like all of them?
I was going to say, how many games did they lose?
Yeah.
It feels like, the Ohio State game last year, they gave up 50-something points. So maybe not that one, but probably pretty much all of the others. So,
and like I told you a week or so ago, it's been 29 games since they've scored 4 offensive touchdowns in the Big Ten game,
which is just insane. I mean, because that goes back to 29 games. I mean, that goes like 21.
I believe,
yeah. I mean,
Maryland.
That's nuts. That's you have to be trying to be that bad.
Exactly. And one of my longtime tenets is that bad offense is on purpose because anybody can have a good offense.
You can scheme your way to a good offense.
Like Northwestern, Zach Kustok, and back in the day, Randy Walker, like they didn't have the talent, but they had a really good offense. And they could even run the ball with like Damian Anderson rushing for 2,000 yards. They could do that. So you didn't just have to dink and dunk. they actually had a second kind of offense where they were able to run the ball. You just have to want to do it and have a system that works and not one that actively works against you.
Yeah. Wingman Ted wants to know, is Prince Brian still part of the Iowa program? I didn't follow his status with the organization after his fall from grace. No, I believe he is officially out and unaffiliated with the Iowa football program. As far
I
as
assume he's like a head coach somewhere in the NFL. Is that no?
Not as far as I'm aware.
I think there was an arena game in a mall recently. I don't know if he had anything to do with that, mall security. I don't know.
I just went to a Canadian football game.
Hey.
I can confirm he was not at the Hamilton Tiger Cats Toronto Argonauts game.
I don't think Canada would allow him in. Football felon.
Listen, they punt on third down up there. That is some real Ferentz ball. They're punting. The first I tweeted about this from the game. They punt on third down. The Hamilton Tiger Cats were black and gold. Punt on third down. Scored their first touchdown on a block punt that set up an 8-yard touchdown drive. Scored their second touchdown on a scoop and score. And I'm like, this is Iowa.
Cow.
This is Iowa North. It is wild. It is quite a fascinating thing there. Mozart's Ghost says, now that Saban is gone, who's going to run with the school for wayward coaches? It feels like that is going to be probably spread out a little bit more now because you've got so many, with the unlimited coaching staffs. I'm sure Kirby Smart's bringing in a bunch of analysts. I'm sure lots of people are bringing in a lot of analysts because it's just at this point there's so much more film to break down. There's so much more everything. You need more bodies. You need more eyes.
I'll tell you who I think will do it. It's the coaches who were helped by such a thing, like Lane Kiffin, like Steve Sarkisian, like Tom Herman. Where they've had their issues, and they will help others out who can obviously help them out.
Yep. And we're going to wrap it up here with Market X. Iowa, Wisconsin, and Sparty need to all get it together. Otherwise, their second-tier program status could be third-tier real quick. I think if you're looking at the Big Ten this year, I think there's an argument to be made that there are 2 teams in the first tier. And there's 2 to 3 to maybe 4 teams in the second tier, depending on, how you want to delineate that. But I think Iowa's a second tier team to me. Like, I think, you've got Ohio State, Oregon.
Yeah.
Then you've got who are like legitimate national championship contenders. This year you got Michigan, Penn State, who I think are strong college football playoff contenders. You got Iowa, who's in that conversation certainly.
They could be either of those teams, but I
yes.
don't know that I don't think they're as good as or
Correct.
have as much talent.
Correct. Yeah, and then you're getting into Nebraska, which is like, if everything breaks right, they could be a college
Nebraska,
football playoff
USC,
contender.
and the rest.
Yeah. You get down to and the rest, and I think Wisconsin's in that third tier, and they could certainly move up. Michigan State might be in the fourth tier this year. Michigan State is, I like the Jonathan Smith hire. That's going to be a process. That is not going to be an easy, a real quick, easy, first season, bing, bang, boom. But yeah, that is a, that I think there'll be more tiers in the Big Ten than I ever have before. And, one more reason to really look forward to the season. We had grand plans on going like 20 minutes. We are here an hour and almost 20 minutes into the show. So I think, Tony, it is probably time to wrap it up. Yep. We will have a full day of coverage for you coming up all day Tuesday and then all day Wednesday and then all day Thursday for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We're going to be posting a ton of content on the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse that is exclusive to our members at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Listen, I don't mean to, I've said this a few times in other contexts, so I'm not just saying it for this. This feels like it's going to be a pretty exciting, memorable college football season, especially in Columbus, Ohio. We would love it if you spend it with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there to make you a smarter football fan. It's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.